I'm kind of sorry I sold her, but
Yeah.
I did. Anyway.
We talked about some of your favorites of the past. What are some of your favorites that you have on your yard right now? What are you building off right now?
Well, there's a lot of dogs I'm actually starting to go out because I got everything tight on Chunk. The foundation of my yard today is Chunk. Okay, he's basically Sorrells, Greenwood, Maloney, and Patrick. He's a very well-bred dog, and he's a dog worthy of building a foundation from.
Yeah, and I want to remind our viewers that all those bloodlines that you just mentioned are the same family anyway.
That's right. They all come from the same people. And another different people, same bloodlines.
Right.
So Don Maloney was breeding the same dogs that Bert was breeding. Ralph Greenwood was breeding the same dogs that Bert breeding, and Patrick was breeding the same dogs that Bert was breeding. So all four of those guys are heavily influenced in the Chunk dog. We're all breeding the basic heavy Black Widow, Klaus's Zeke.
Yeah, and he's not just those four lines, but he's a dog off the best of those four lines.
The best of those four lines, that's right.
Yep.
I think the best dog Bert said he ever owned was Shoshone. He's heavy. He's very heavy in there. But so what I'm trying to do is, now that I've got Chunk and everything off of him on the ground, there's dogs that I'm looking at that I'm trying to breed to.
I'd say stick Cayenne to her. I mean,
Chunk. Oh yeah, that's a no-brainer. That's
because then she's full
that's
of your
basically
old blood.
the same thing I've been breeding already.
Cayenne is full of your old blood,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
if you
right.
take her to Chunk, that'd be enough of a. It's not an out, but it's a.
Well, it's
diversity.
a lot like breeding Chunk to Sadie.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
Chunk to Sadie is the king dog, right? So it's very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Anyway,
One of the things that I've seen, some people claim that they put you back in the dogs, but I'm not going to mention any names on who that person is, but it always kind of ruffled my feathers when he said he put you back into the dogs, because their yard is based off of the dogs that you were breeding in the 80s and 90s.
yep.
So I don't know if you I just wanted to mention that on your behalf.
Well, if that's the case, then there's a lot of people that put me back in the dogs. For number one, I was never out of the dogs. I have always had
A few.
pit bulls. Now, I reduced my yard to like 5 at one time, and I was hunting those dogs real heavy, doing a lot of the small game. That's where the stick dog came in.
The wilderness
That's where
survival schools.
all the survival training. And I went from stick to another dog named Frogman. I went from Frogman, I went to Big Daddy, and then there was another dog that I made Frogman 2. So there was 2 Frogmen. There was Stick and there was Big Daddy. There was four dogs there that carried me through my interim period. So for me, it was mid-70s to late 90s. And then I took a hiatus and chilled out. But I didn't get rid of my dogs. I kept my dogs. But that's when I started my business, teaching survival. So I changed my operation of business mode, and I still had the dogs, but I wasn't,
Breeding and campaigning.
not heavy. I was using them for hogs, and I was using them for catching small game and stuff like that.
Right.
And then whenever I started to ramp up and start breeding some dogs again and get my hand back into the breeding side of it, which I'm in now, that guy you're talking about was instrumental. Yeah, he gave me one dog. One dog. How does that start my whole yard?
Yeah.
It's one dog.
Right. I agree. And again, I won't leave this in unless you want me to, but I just felt like it should be addressed if you
It's all
wanted to
right.
address
It's fine. I don't have any problem. He called me. He'd call me or text me, but he tried to make it look like it was somebody else's phone. I think it was somebody else's phone, and he showed me where this guy had bred this. Look at this dog. Look at what he's doing.
Yeah, I remember.
And
that.
it wasn't. He was trying to say it was not him. I'd have to show you on my phone. It's on there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where, but it's on there. I could find it, but it might take too much time. But
So
I don't
Chunk is one of your favorite producers. That's the
right
best-
now. Yeah, Chunk is.
And what are some of your
foundation.
favorite workers right now?
Well, Uncle Chunk remains one of the great ones. Uncle Chunk is definitely, as far as when everything you want in a dog, he's got it. He's got everything you want.
Yeah.
He's got talent. He's smart. He's got it all. He's got everything in one dog.
Yeah.
So a lot of these dogs, like some of them are just very game.
Yeah.
Some of them are very talented, but they're not game and talented. They're just game or talented. They're not both. So
Call Boots a blacksmith over here.
Boo, come here, baby. Where is she? Right here.
Oh, she's right under your feet. Been quiet the whole time.
Oh, what are you doing, baby? Come here. Come here, get up here. Come here.
All right. Well, one question that I have is, if you were gonna give advice to a young person today getting into the dogs, what advice would it be?
Find a reputable breeder.
I think the breeder's more important than the dog.
Yeah, I do.
I agree.
Find a reputable breeder. Get to know him. Find out everything you can about him. You know, make sure you do your homework. And don't just trust anybody, because there's so many young, they get in this thing, they buy females from you, from me, from all these other people, and then they start breeding dogs, and they're breeders. And they don't know nothing. I mean, they don't know anything about these dogs. And they're outselling me because they're young, they're marketing, you know, at a higher level than I market.
I saw a friend of mine send me a picture literally yesterday that said, I didn't know that to be a dog breeder, not only did I not necessarily have to know genetics, but I have to know how to be a photographer, cinematography, marketing, business management, all these other things that really have nothing to do with it.
That's true.
Dog breeding.
Today, probably have to be a little bit more all around of those things. When I first got in it, nobody was doing pictures. I mean, it would have been an insult if I would have called Maurice Cover up, hey, can you send me a picture of those puppies?
Yeah.
What I would be telling Maurice at that point would be, I don't trust you. That I need to see proof of what you're doing.
Right.
I don't trust your word. I got to see proof. And that is an
The
insult.
proof was actually in their performance and not proof in a picture.
Right. But if I did that today, I mean, in those days, it would have been an insult. Today, it's not an insult. It's just these young guys,
Different way of life.
yeah, it's the cell
Proof of the
phone.
phone, they can take
cell
a picture
phone.
right now and send it to you right now. Video
The cell
right now.
phone has changed everything.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's fine. I don't have any problem with it.
No.
I'm not a marketer and I'm not a techie.
Right. It's
So I don't
different.
have the ability to.
Man, I even though I have made websites and take pictures and take videos, one thing that I don't edit videos except for maybe crop and paste.
Yeah.
I take some parts out, connect two videos together. That's about the limit. I know people that are doing like music and zoom in and zoom out and slow motion and
That's
highlights.
high technology.
I can't do that. I don't
It's
have that knowledge.
Yeah, that takes
like a movie.
a training. I mean, you have to be. In other words, when you go
Cinematographer, is that how you say it?
when you go into the first grade today, there's a computer on your desk.
Right.
When you went into first grade, when I was in there was a blackboard.
A
and
chalkboard.
it was chalk,
Right.
and that was it.
I went from chalkboard to dry erase to computers.
A whole different
The-
world.
All right,
That's
so
fine.
my question was, what advice would you give them? So get to know a breeder. We covered that
That'd be
one.
the first most important part.
All right,
Get
and if
to
you're
know
going to
a
start a
breeder.
yard, I've oftentimes heard get a female first. Will you agree?
buy a couple of females, and try and get them out of two different sires, or maybe two different dams, same sire, different dams, or same dam, different sires. So you have a variety. So that would be the start, and then make a few breedings. Hold on to as many as you can within that limit, so you can find out what they do, what their talents are. You can find out what kind of dog they are. Because if you sell them, you're not going to find out what kind of dog they are. So you're breeding blind. So you need to hold on to as many as you can, especially in the beginner. As far as a newcomer goes, he needs to hold on to as many as he can, so that way you can find out what he's got. Okay, and then after you do that, and you got the foundation of those, go find another breeder and introduce some other stuff into your line. Then you got a start. That's a start.
One of the things I noticed that Pat Patrick did was when he got Bolio, and he even had, Tater and some other dogs, and Tombstone. But anyway, when he got Bolio, I noticed he bred Bolio to a lot of different bitches.
Oh, yeah.
And then he'd take those bitches back to Bolio or to each other. But his yard was really, really, really heavy Bolio.
Well, he was a
two-time
Floyd Boudreaux match.
Well, I hear he was matched multiple times, but only two contract. Only two
That's
official.
Right. That sounds about right.
Because I heard about, it's not on his record, but I saw a write-up about Bolio that talked about him going into a dog that was like 10 pounds bigger, and he mollywalked it. But that was, of course, unofficial.
I don't doubt it.
And then...
the Snooty dog is credited with a two-time winner, one-time game loser or something like that, or two-time winner, two-time loser. Man, I know for a fact he probably was off the chain match 15 or 20 times. Snooty.
Yeah.
To me, that's, if you can get it, it's almost impossible to get.
Before we go on to the Boomerang dog, because I did want to discuss him briefly, but before we do that, since we were speaking on questionable pedigrees, the one pedigree that I always found to be, there's no way.
Suspect.
No way. This is just too suspect. Was Scrub, was Blind Billy 4 generations in a row. Blind Billy to a bitch, and then bred back to his daughter, then bred back to his granddaughter, then bred back to his great granddaughter. 4 generations in a row.
Well,
that dog, and then they took that and did it in a way where I came up with a coefficient of inbreeding. Let's see, the coefficient of relationship was like 97%. Coefficient of inbreeding was about 48%. And generally speaking, non-pit bull breeds would go sterile around 25%. Pit bull breeds tend to go sterile around 37 to 40. And he was at 47.5%. The highest you can get on a coefficient of inbreeding is 50%. Actually, you can't even get that, but that's mathematically in theory. If you did it forever, you could approach 50%.
Well, here's the truth. My brother knew Floyd Boudreaux better than I did. We both knew him very well. And he respected me and my brother very much, and we respected him. Now, there's some things about Floyd that I won't talk about, but they were very, very not good. They were bad. I won't go into that. But I will say this. My brother knew him very much better than I did. Because when I got my start with Bert, Skip, my brother, was getting his start with Jerry Clements and Floyd Boudreaux. So, really, Jerry and Floyd were best friends when we met them. Jerry and Floyd were absolutely like that. If one was at a show, they were both at the show. Anyway, I know for a fact that Blind Billy was owned by his father.
By Floyd Boudreaux's father.
Blind Billy was dead before Floyd even started breeding dogs. So his daddy was still breeding dogs when Blind Billy was already, he was dying. But what happened was that he put Blind Billy in his pedigrees because he was hiding other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing he was doing, he was bringing a tribute to his father, who had loved Blind Billy and had bred him a lot.
I got you.
And so
makes sense.
My brother.
I'm not saying it's justified, but I understand his agenda.
He was bringing tribute to his father by showing that it's Blind Billy, but it really wasn't. My brother believes it was Rascal, Trey Ant's Rascal, which was much, 17 matches. Rascal.
Yeah.
17 matches.
Yeah.
And those are contract fights.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know he had that many.
17. Now, there is stories that say he stopped, but who cares? When you get that many and you've really done it, it's like Snooty, man. He's probably 10 or 15.
The other dog I wanted to ask about, Boomerang. Obviously, there's a lot of stories about Boomerang being in the Sorrells dogs, which we can see in the pedigree sometimes, but the stories are that he's in there much more often than
I can tell you who they are. I know exactly who they are. If you look in his pedigrees, you're looking at Bubba Bo and Raisin. And in my opinion, now I can't prove this, but Bubba Bo I know for a fact, because Bert handed me the pedigree written out by his hand, handed it to me and showed me Bubba Bo, top and bottom. Davis's Scratch, Davis's Grasshopper, pure Baker Davis blood, pure Boomerang. That's what Bubba Bo was. So Bubba Bo made Raisin. That was two pure Boomerang dogs that Bert was breeding that he never showed Boomerang in. His Shoshone behind that. Every time you see Shoshone behind the Bubba Bo, you know it's not right.
Okay, so Raisin went to Bubba Bo and Bubba Bo went to Baker Davis.
Boomerang. That's right. He got Bubba Bo from Baker.
You see like a dog in the pedigree is Miss Boomerang.
Now she was sired by Boomerang, but she was straight off of Boomerang. She was older.
I'm curious if
she was before Bubba Bo.
Now he bought Miss Boomerang, correct?
Uh-huh.
Now I'm curious if Bert ever bred the Davis's Grasshopper or Davis's, what was the other one?
Scratch and Grasshopper.
Scratch. I'm curious if he ever bred those to Miss Boomerang.
Well, I don't know if he had those two dogs. I think they were owned by Baker.
Oh, so
Davis
he just
Scratch
studded to them.
Yeah. Either studded to them or he bought the puppy or a young dog.
Yeah.
Bubba Bo. And there was
Bubba Bo may have been purchased from Baker Davis's yard. Is
right.
What you're getting at.
Right.
Now, do you know if Bubba Bo was ever bred to Miss Boomerang?
No, he was younger. She was dead by the time he was doing it.
So that could have never happened.
He
I was curious if he ever developed a Boomerang.
Started with Miss Boomerang, and then it went to Bubba Bo, and then he had other dogs that were by Boomerang that he was never showing. He never showed, except for Miss Boomerang, he never showed the Boomerang in his blood.
I'm
He
curious
changed
if the
it.
Miss Boomerang ever comes back to meet through maybe Miss Boomerang's daughters, were they ever bred back to Bubba Bo? I'll have to ask
probably.
any of her daughters.
Oh,
I was
sure.
curious if he ever developed a
Well, yeah,
Boomerang
see, he had
line.
a lot of Boomerang on his yard, but he wasn't showing it.
Right.
It would always show Shoshone.
Yeah.
Shoshone on everything.
Yeah.
But Shoshone, it was like what Patrick did with Bolio.
Yeah.
It's showing Bolio. Bolio's in there from way back there. And then it went to Bull Boy Bob. It's too long. He stayed on that game too long for me to believe it. You see, he had seen some Red Boy blood going somewhere. You never see Red Boy and Patrick blood. But the thing that's interesting is the Red Boy blood all looked like the Tombstone blood. Tombstone's a big red nose, red nose. So I don't know. I got a regard for Patrick. He stayed in a long time, and he didn't match many dogs, but he sure was a good breeder. He produced a lot of great dogs. No matter what he was using, he was making good dogs with them, which reminded me of the way Bert was. I think there was more crosses in those days than these guys are leading on. I think they were actually crossing more than they were saying. It's like the old timers like Don Mayfield told me, you could bring a grand champion out to his yard and walk right up to his front door with a grand champion right there on his feet. He would not breed to that dog unless he was bred the way his dogs were bred. And so that was what Don Mayfield told me. He told me that. He said, I wouldn't breed to anybody's dog, grand champion or 6 or 8 or even 15-time winner. If he wasn't bred the way I breed them, I wouldn't breed to it. So that was the way it was in those days.
Bert Sorrells told me face to face that no chef shows their recipe.
It's
The
true.
true recipe.
Yeah, it's true.
That's what he said to me. But anyway, all right, if we close it up?
Yeah, we're done.
All right, so
Madison,
Yeah.
thanks for the interview. It's
Thanks a
a
lot.
pleasure seeing you again.
Good seeing you,
Take care.
brother. I appreciate you coming. Let's go get that little jip out of the kennel and